My name is Sasha, and I work at the patient engagement team here at PCC. And for the past 4, maybe 5, I think it's 4 years, we've introduced to CHADIS, and we have been implementing CHADIS for clients. So I don't know if everyone in this room, I think this course has about 60 attendees, but clearly you're losing by folks remotely, so they're winning in terms of how many people we have in this session. Are you guys all using CHADIS in this room? Is anyone here not using it or not integrated? Okay, so everyone's in fact integrated. You just started? Okay, perfect. And what about anyone else has been a year, 2 years, 3 years, or fairly a couple of years? Okay, perfect. And the reason I asked that question is because last UC in Denver that we did, the presentation was, dramatically different, because what we did is gathered a whole bunch of data. It was basically more driven analytically and trying to figure out what benefits did we see, right? Today's course is more based on, are you doing some of these very simple, basic things that we believe are helping our clients get a better engagement in terms of your families and patients filling out the survey, right? And so today, I hope, right, that we can learn some of these different things. Again, most of the stuff that I'll be talking about should be very familiar to you. However, if there's that one small thing that you overlooked or you missed or you didn't know, we're hoping that small change can be effective, and that the engagement will be even more successful. Okay, so with that being said, I guess we don't really necessarily have to talk about what CHADIS is, since we don't have any new clients or potentially someone who's looking to integrate. But then again, I'm not sure if that's true with guys online with us. But just a quick reference, again, CHADIS is a web-based tool that provides patients and parents with online questionnaires, right? So they're filling them out in advance using your practice portal, or also known as PCC portal to us, okay? Why does the integration matter? I really hope that everyone here and everyone watching this session can relate and can agree with me that it will improve your patient care. It will ensure complete patient charting. It will certainly help with that. Hopefully, and everyone, most likely when I meet with clients, we talk about how much time is it going to save. The front desk usually the happiest staff of all, right? Because they're hoping that we can reduce some of that stuff that they normally do manually. In addition, we don't necessarily get into too much or deep dive into much of reporting, but I'm hoping to use this session as an opportunity to also introduce you guys to a couple of different new reports. They're not necessarily new, but something that we don't necessarily cover during the implementation phase, right? We just don't have enough time to cover everything. We want to try to get you to understand the basics of PCC and CHADIS integration and get you going. We try to do follow-up visits. I try to schedule a lot of different calls with clients, but we figured that let's go ahead and share some of the stuff that we believe might be helpful. All right. So what's the goal here? Again, we're going to look at some best practices. We're going to go over some reporting, and we'll finish off with some very small tips and tricks. Best practices, of course, was, again, this entire presentation was built and constructed based off of what do we get from our clients, what do they ask us, what do they need, and what guidance they're asking for. So we take all that information, we take a bunch of emails out, we do all the different calls, all the tickets, and say, okay, so we have this many tickets about this many questions about this. Let's go ahead and try to see if we can provide you guys with some of those helpful tools. Reporting, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about a couple of different reports in the EHR, okay, as well as in CHADIS as well. And tips and tricks. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of the items here. As you can see, our slides are very basic, very simple, because I'm going to do a lot of talking here, or at least that's the idea. You guys feel free to ask questions I'm trying to also hopefully have some interactive conversations here as well. Review incomplete screenings before visit. I guess I'll start this one off with a question of, let's say it's the day of the visit, and then you identify a patient who did not have their screenings filled out. What is everyone doing to see, like, what's your next move in terms of trying to get that family to fill out the questionnaires? Are you now using the iPad in the office, or what other tools are folks doing?
We use the iPad or their personal device to be able to scan it.
Okay. So that would be.
Medical assistants do it when we individuals.
Okay. My other question with this one is, anyone doing any proactive outreach to some of those, like maybe a day before? Okay. And are you guys using? Send text. Okay, perfect. That's interesting, because that's also on here as well. This is, again, having implemented being with CHADIS and not having the results back in the EHR obviously will delay the patient care. And one of the things that we always suggest is, pre-visit text. That is one thing that when I talk to a lot of clients after the post-integration, explain to them, we do a lot of different things to help our clients engage in the patient engagement. But when you do have a particular family who doesn't engage, doesn't fill out, like, what is the last step? Kind of like, what's the last resort that you can do? And you'd be surprised at how many clients say, oh, really? I can actually text them too? And so one of the things that we see that works really well, as a matter of fact, I had a client recently out in California who started doing this because they didn't use the sort of a last resort. So they started texting patients directly, and the benefit of that is that you can actually customize the message to your liking, right? It can be very specific and very direct. But it's also the opportunity to explain the importance of doing that. It's not just that, you're thrilled that they didn't do, because they did have many different notifications before this, right? So there's 3 notifications from CHADIS. If you guys using pre-check-in, there's also a notification there as well. So when they log into the portal, they can see CHADIS questionnaires in there as well. And so I understand that this is, for some can be a lot of work, but if you're not using this, if you never used a pretext for, let's say, a notification when it comes to CHADIS or pre-questionnaires, give it a try and see how well that works out, because you'll be amazed at how well it works.
Do you have any suggestions for the teenagers and the PHQ-9 and the other screeners, since we can't send them to the parents? So those we're having to do in the office, and those take quite a lot of time.
Yeah, so interesting enough, we anticipated this question to come up because, for the past 4 presentations that we've done, this is a #1 topic. And I see Hannah here, who's also from CHADIS as well, smiling about that. We have different methods, right? But we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay. Yeah. So why that completion is important, I don't work in the office, I work behind the keyboard, guys, and I do my best to do as many clients and onboard them. But I would imagine that probably you guys can all agree with me that if this is not complete, then that delays everything else in the office, right? Now you have the front desk, scrambling around trying to figure out, is it worth more doing it on paper, or do I want to now do the QR code, right? Some of you guys are doing that, I hope. And so here we go, there's the tumble going on. So it is important, I think, from the practice standpoint, to explain to your families and your patients as to why this is important to have it done before the visit. So with that being said, is anyone in this room doing any of the work, maybe quarterly or every 6 months or so, sending out any broadcast messaging out there, explaining the importance of filling out the pre-visit questionnaires? So again, all of this stuff is not coming from me because I know I have all the answers, but this is items that, this is the things that I would discover during some of our follow-up calls with clients who started doing this and who believe that it has made maybe not a significant difference, but it has maybe improved a little bit in terms of getting patients to comply and fill out their surveys. So I would just recommend maybe looking into something like this and doing some of the reporting. So again, as you guys can all know, in the EHR, the broadcast report can find out patients coming in a week before, week before, 2 weeks before, how many months you want, how many weeks you want to go with, and then go ahead and send that message, simply to help your compliance, and hopefully will drive them to actually complete those questionnaires before the visit. But yeah, so that's one thing that we really wanted to share here today. Auto assignment configuration. When we talk to our clients, right, during the implementation phase, Hannah and I, for the most part, and folks at CHADIS, we will really work hard with our clients to get your auto configurations done to go live, right? But then the question always comes up, is like, how many clients are actually going back and revisiting your auto configurations? How often do you make adjustments, or have you made any adjustments to begin with? And if you did, did you only make adjustments in CHADIS? Did you go back in the EHR? All right. So those are all the important stuff that can make a disruption in the office, because oftentimes we'll get calls or emails and say, hey, we have this patient or this family who did not get this particular screening, but then it turns out that we look at audits and they made a change a week before. And so, of course, making any changes like that, unless you make any changes in EHR, will disrupt that service, and questionnaires may not get assigned as you expected. Now then comes back to square one. Now that family is in the office, there are no questionnaires. Now you're going back to paper or maybe manually assign them. And so you might be asking yourself a question, is it worth it? I still believe it is, but I think it's also important to do some of these basic elements and basic configurations in order to make that implementation and integration pretty smooth. So I think this is huge. This happens quite often. Again, the clients will make changes, will add new questionnaires, but they wouldn't go back into the EHR. They wouldn't link them to appropriate visit orders and things like that. So if you are making changes, it's something to be really, and of course, we're always here to help if you have any questions with any of that. And this is one, I believe, feature that is probably not as utilized as heavy as what I think, is auto-triggered screenings. Anyone here in this room using this particular configuration setup? So this would be, for example, let's say there's an MCHAT or M2 or anything like that, the questionnaires that may trigger a failure, it could auto-trigger another set of questionnaires right after that. So if you were an office who may then need to manually order that when the family is in the office, this can actually save you a lot of time. And so instead of having to either go to CHADIS directly, which I believe is probably a better approach, or doing it on the actual physical paper, having a configuration set up like this will certainly help make the office workflow a bit smoother. I would certainly look into this. Hannah and her team from CHADIS will be happy to assist with that. And that is something that clients, and Hannah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, not necessarily they can do themselves, but you probably need, yeah. So if there are screenings that you're currently doing that folks, let's say, are failing, yeah, please reach out to CHADIS as they can help set this up. All right, and let's see, what else do we have here? There it is. Yeah, I'm just going to take a break here because this is a very interesting one. So for past, like I said, 4 years that we had these presentations during the UC, questions would always, even before we start, even before I say who I am, they're like, hey, how do you deal with the 15-year-olds? And it becomes down to the policy, which again, it can be, some practices are very harsh and some are not. What is your practice policy when it comes to assigning screenings for this particular age group? I'm not sure, I could be mistaken here, but I think that one of the policies from AAP is that some questionnaires for adolescents should be really filled out by the patient, right? That's, okay, cool, I'm not wrong there. But the question, the problem is, and the issue and the concern is they're not doing this, and it's making your life a lot harder. In order for them to do that, you guys already know that the portal has to exist for those particular patients, but now then you have a parent in between, then you have they don't have a cell phone, they don't have email and whatnot. The only other way to do this is to do it through CHADIS Direct, okay? Now, of course, that's not auto-integrated. Again, this is something you're still manually doing, but you folks do have access directly through CHADIS, in which way you can go and add a patient on the fly through CHADIS Direct, and for those questionnaires can arrive to the EHR that way. Keep in mind, it's still not going to be auto-delivered. It will still be delivered through the messaging queue, so you still have to manually link those patients and those results that way. So that's something that I just wanted to point out there. Do we have a solution? I don't believe that I personally do, but I'm hoping that maybe someone here have an idea of what is the best way to deal with OSMs, because someone working at PCC and someone doing implementations, I don't necessarily see those on the other side. We just see that, hey, we don't have a patient, doesn't have a portal, what's my alternative? Well, there's only two alternatives really, is going to paper or going through CHADIS Direct. Is anyone here struggling? Does have a massive amount of people coming in that particular age group that you're struggling with? Is that anyone here? Everyone?
Yeah, it's a big problem. Even the parents don't want to do it, you know what I mean? It's like pulling teeth.
Okay.
It's really probably the hardest part of my job is getting chats, consuming more time is what I'm saying. The text you talked about the day before, then you come in the next morning, you got to go in, you got to check them again, and then you got to reach out by phone and say, still not done, and you're going to be here in 2 hours.
Definitely time consuming and certainly a burden in that regard. What's the earliest age? 11, 12? 11. Okay. So has anyone ever thought of maybe like potentially increasing that age, or maybe to 13? Or would that make it, or are you now?
I'm not sure if you can. I think it's law-based or whatever. I think there's certain
In different states.
Adhere to for what state you're in, I think.
Okay. Yeah, because that was one thing that I wanted to mention, but also the other part of that is that we can set up, and Hannah and myself and people working on this, one thing that we do for clients, for example, we can set up these questionnaires where they're actually delivered. If the patient has a portal, great, they get them, they fill them out. But if they don't, it can go to a parent, right? Now, we know that that's not what we really want, but one thing that if you know that the parent is the one who filled out the screening, you can document that within the order itself. Now, that still is not as ideal as having a patient filling it out, because you really want the answers directly from a patient, right? Because are they really providing the honest answers to the mom and dad? Most likely there's a concern there. But in terms of in EHR and what we can do from the standpoint of providing you with the software, there is no other solution, at least not at this time, that can make this a lot easier. But I'm a big fan, again, I would try to avoid paper as much as possible. Giving them the opportunity to do that in the office using CHADIS, I think directly is a benefit. Again, it's not auto-integrated, you have to do it manually, but at least you're still getting you're getting the result hopefully directly from the patient. So if anyone has any ideas to share about this one, this is a very difficult for me. I wanted to put that on here. But do we really have the answers? I don't believe I do. But suggestions, different workflows that you can try is certainly helpful. Some practices, again, I really dislike saying this, but some practices are very strict on this and say, no, I need the patients to do it, and I will have them fill out the form, because I'm going to get the most out of that patient if they're filling it themselves. So if you have to do that, again, that requires scanning. That's everything that goes against this particular presentation. Everything is based off saving you time and making it more efficient, unfortunately. So, yeah, with that being said, I did want to point out a couple of different things that may be new to you. For the ones from CHADIS standpoint, will be definitely new. A couple of different reports that I stumbled on myself, so I had to reach out to Hannah to get some clarification and assistance on that. And I think that jointly we believe that this could help a bit. But before that, I do want to mention that some of the basic EHR reports that you may have seen in EHR. You guys are also are well aware, and again, these things coming through us all the time, if there is no portal for a given family, there will be no questionnaires, right? So that's just the way it is. That's there's no other way around it. Clients, from speaking with them, from following up a lot, I just don't see a lot of clients, doing proactive work in terms of collecting the portals, right? They try their best, but they get missed more than they actually get collected. We do have a very easy, very simple report that you don't even have to customize. It's part of the report library in here that you can run at any given time just to get familiarized with how many portals, how many accounts do you have that are missing out there. Collecting portals ahead of time will certainly help with questionnaire assignments, and more importantly, not missing screenings beforehand. Okay, so I'm not saying that anyone in this room or anyone joining us remotely is having these issues, but I would certainly see them. We have over 100 and close to 140 clients online right now with CHADIS. These questions come up all the time. Hey, how come the questionnaires didn't get assigned? I would log in and see there's a missing portal, right? So it's like it stops right there. So portal adoption, it has to be bigger, better than ever, because before CHADIS integration, portal was obviously always pushed, but it was not really required. With the integration here, it is required. So again, I hope that everyone here doesn't have that problem, but I wouldn't be surprised if clients can probably improve that particular segment. Even better, and I was just talking to a practice right before I walked in here, they say, hey, is there a report in EHR that I can see who's coming in a couple of weeks from now and then who's missing the portal? All right. I show this one a lot, especially during the follow-up calls that I have with clients. I highly encourage folks to take a look at this one. Again, this is a portal that is built. You don't have to build it yourself. It's an existing report that you can just simply give it a date range and say, hey, give me anyone who's coming in 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, and let me know if they do in fact have a portal linked, okay? Then what you can do is you can send a blast message to everyone and saying, hey, I need you to give us a call. Your portal is, you don't have a portal, we'd like to sign you up with a portal. Once you do that, then a week before those appointments are scheduled, CHADIS is going to assign those visits and those screenings directly, okay? So this one is a bit more common. I think folks are more familiar with this one than the first report, but this is something that will help you help a ton. And it's a very basic, simple report. Again, this whole presentation is really based on, just simple things that you can do, make adjustments to help you get engaged. Well, really, patients and families, if they're not. I wanted to separate this because now I'm really going to specifically go over to CHADIS. Again, for this, you will need to go directly into CHADIS to set this up. Well, and we'll talk about the next couple of different ones. So the high risk assessment report, does anyone have that set up in here? So this would be, I believe personally, very helpful. Okay, so this is a report. If there's failed questionnaires, this is an example of what this would be. And if you wanted to be notified or alerted, way sooner than the patients arriving in the office. Okay, you can set this up with CHADIS. This is not something that you have available as user approachable, but you would need to reach out to CHADIS to help you set this up. So long story short is the questionnaires go out a week before, and let's say we have a failed, critical, high risk assessment. That's a failure. You would be, or your practice, or someone in the office would be getting an email about this. We do recommend that you have more than one person being attached to this email. Because again, if it goes to Dr. Smith and Dr. Smith is on vacation, then what purpose does that really serve? And so having an alias or having multiple people receiving this particular email would be very helpful. This is not something that really Han and I talk about during implementation because we're trying to get other things, but we wanted to bring this attention to that this is something that you can set up for your practice. And I hope that every time you get this email is blank, but in some cases we know that it could be a failure. We do also have something very similar in the EHR where you could be notified in the EHR if there's a failure, if there's a failed survey, and that's done through the EHR and through the messaging queue. So if you guys are familiar with when you're setting up your orders, or any orders, you can have it says include reports. So what that really does is that we will pay attention to any failed survey, and we would notify you also ahead of time, way before a patient visits is scheduled for, and so you can see in that way as well. But I believe personally that this is more effective because this is sent directly through the email. Okay, so you don't have to rely on going to the messaging queue and making sure that you clear that up. So,
Question?
Yeah.
Most offices have it going to multiple people in their office?
Hannah can probably speak for that, but I would imagine that at almost everyone who does have this is multiple people that's on that email. Hannah, would you say that it's a fair?
Yeah, it depends. There might be like a practice manager that's the only one that gets it, or there could be like a few admin people, but yeah, it's up to you.
Is there any like liability if you miss, like, let's say this is sent to you and somebody doesn't see it and there's recent thoughts of suicide on it?
Yeah, so the liability risk there behind that. I actually don't know if I have the answer.
Can you repeat questions and answers?
Oh, sure, yeah. The question was, if someone was to set this report, is there a liability? What are the implications of missing this particular email or failed question? So the answer that I don't have, I don't know if what the liability would be, but I think that having multiple people on that obviously will increase visibility. But if you were to fail that, I would probably suggest maybe contacting the attorney, the practice attorney, and see what would happen if someone would to miss that. I guess so I can compare it to, let's say that the survey was to go out, you don't have this set up, and it is a high risk, right? But you still wouldn't you wouldn't know until they arrive 5 days later. So I wonder how would that be, linked to having this set up. So I don't honestly, and I'm not even going to even touch on that because that's a huge. I would rather just be honest and say I don't have the answer, but maybe it would be worthwhile to check on that and see if it would make sense to have it done. Because again, I don't believe it's highly utilized. Hannah, you probably know better than I do, but I don't believe that this is highly utilized. Maybe for that reason too. So it might be linked in some regard. All right. Has anyone seen any of these reports that I'm going over? Have you guys, anyone spending time? Okay. Well, that's a good thing. So that makes me happy to hear. So this is a submission report that CHADIS has available. I think from time to time, if you're an office who really wants to figure out what is the engagement, how well are you doing on a submission, right? They do have a couple of different reports that I believe personally can be helpful, right? So this particular graph here, it can be set up weekly, daily, and monthly. So there's an example of an office, month to month, and looking at the submission, how many were submitted, and so forth, and what does that graph look like? So if you have a certain month that we can pay attention to here, why is July way higher than November? Were there just less visits, or more vacations, or what it was? So I don't know how helpful this would be, looking at it this way, but comparing it to month, I believe that putting a picture together could be helpful in terms of understanding, where is the peak and where is the which month is the slowest one. It is there. You can look at it weekly. That might be more suitable for some offices, but it is available, and then you'll be able to easily tell a difference of how well you're doing in terms of submission. And so that could raise other flags. Then, if this report goes up and down constantly, then why is it not steady? How many visits did you have? Because again, in EHR, you can easily run a report to figure out how many visits did you have past month, comparing it to how many CHADIS submissions there were. Okay. The next one is the questionnaire assignment report. All right. So this one, I believe it is a little bit easier to sort of follow. As you guys can see, that the graph here simply shows in blue here how many were submitted, all right, and how many were assigned. Again, they're very similar in some regard, but it'll give you an idea of how many patients do you have coming in on a regular basis, and how well are you adopting in terms of completion of those. Again, I think it goes back to the beginning of this presentation, is that if you are following up some of these most basic, simple things, following up on those families who did not complete them, reaching out proactively, I guarantee you that this graph will show that difference in there. It's the small things that our clients are often forgetting, or perhaps in some cases not doing. So we wanted to show that off. Again, both of these reports are available directly in CHADIS. So you guys all have logins, and you'll have access to these. And there is submitted ahead of time, right? So yeah, you'll be able to see even up to minutes. I believe there's one particular report that will literally show you how many were submitted a couple days before, or even up to an hour, I believe, or so. Hannah, I don't know if you want to speak on that, but I believe that's the answer.
There's a report that can show you like how many questionnaires were submitted before, 1 hour before the appointment, after 1 hour, 24 hours later. And so, yeah, we just have to turn that on for your office, but you can go and look at it. We can also send you that through email and have like a recurring report.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is something new. We haven't really showed this off before. I think this is our first time at this conference that we wanted to bring your attention to this. All right, and now we're going to look at some of the other tips and tricks, and some of the, most likely all of these here that I will come up, that I'll talk about are items that are coming in through the everyday support. Some of them maybe came from someone sitting here, but some of these things that you may have you've done, maybe you forgot how to do them, and so forth. So minimum days between assignments. Are you guys familiar with this in terms of configuration of what that does? Okay, so oftentimes we'll get emails and calls about clients saying, hey, why did this person get the same questionnaires? They had a canceled visit a week before, right? But mom canceled the visit, and now she rescheduled it, but then she got the same set of questionnaires. That's kind of annoying, right? In CHADIS, in the configuration in CHADIS directly, you can set up certain questionnaires to have certain time has to pass before they can get another set of questionnaires assigned. All right, so I don't know how many of you guys know that, or if anyone knew that. Okay, so that's something that I can, maybe after this session, I'll be happy to answer or show you where that is. So again, this is happening in auto assignment configurations, right where you are setting up the minimum age. You guys must have all seen that. Like the patient has to be between age 6 and age 18, for example, right? Along those same configurations, there is a question that says, hey, how many days has to gone by before this gets assigned again? This is also super helpful for, some of this maybe a question or a visit gets scheduled in mistake by, let's say, a new patient well visit, and you have maybe a form that gets filled out for every new patient, right? So let's just say that visit gets canceled, then you have that question again, so now they're filling it out twice. So that's where this comes on. This is probably, this is a top, I would say, question or email that would come through our various support channels here at PCC. And so I often have to defer folks to make that change in order to make that stop. I guess I'm not surprised you guys didn't know that, because I don't know how much we really covered that. Again, there's a lot for us to cover, so we apologize in advance of not having the ability to show all of that. And this one, all right, this is probably one of my top favorite one. I mentioned this at the very beginning. Your CHADIS screening is linked probably to EHR orders. When we proactively reach out to clients to do follow-up meetings about CHADIS integrations, I would oftentimes look in the billing configuration, and I would see a list of different codes or orders that are either super long names or have 0 codes linked to it. Then I would learn that they have linked or added a ton of different screenings in CHADIS, but never went back and linked to any of them in the billing. So I would get yelled at and angry emails from a bunch of billers and saying, hey, why isn't none of this stuff linked? Okay. At the beginning, it took me a long time to figure that out, but now I can figure it out within seconds. So all you have to do is that when you add a new screening in CHADIS, a new survey, which again, we want you to do that, but we also want you to make sure that you guys go back in the EHR and link appropriate code to this. If you don't know what it is, most likely you have a wonderful biller who does that, or you have a billing service who does that, okay? It's imperative that you reach out to your billers and say, we've added a new screening, this might be a billable service, we want to make sure that it is linked to those orders. I really hope that that's not really new, but you'd be surprised at how many support calls we'll have having to go back and fix this. This is also a problem that can be a lengthy one to fix, right? So if you had a particular survey that's been added a month before and then no one's noticed it, because I don't certainly notice it, I only notice it when I get a call, and now that goes back to delay, office delay, because all those charges have to be resubmitted. How many of them get paid after that is also a question. I don't know. I'm assuming they do get paid, but it might be a delayed process. So again, it all ties up to going back to the original ease workflow of that. It's definitely an item that we have to follow up a lot on. So part of my job here at PCC is to proactively find those offices, and then help clean some of that stuff up. But it's also hard for us to, it's not like we have any notifications or alerts. This is a random find, but also a highly asked question through PCC channels. The other things also directly involve CHADIS, and that is testing your visit auto assignments. The reason why I wanted to put this on here is because it is a feature that does exist that you can do. Figuring out how many questionnaires are you going to get for a particular visit type. The reason why it's on there really goes beyond of just having this feature available in CHADIS that you can do, but it's also, are you bombarding your patients and your families with too many screenings? Because oftentimes I would talk to clients, physicians in most cases, they're saying that, you know what, we're doing all of these things that you're saying that, and it does work, but folks are complaining about there are too many surveys and they're long. And you know what, I test this and I test it every single day, and it takes me a very long time to just test them without even reading them. And you guys probably all been on the call, most of you guys on the call with me, I just check buttons, and I'm like, wow, this is long. Now imagine being a parent who actually has to read all of that stuff, right? And say, wow, that's 30 minutes. So we really wanted to put this out here because you have the ability to test how many surveys will get each, assigned for a particular patient, age group, visit type, and so on, okay? As you can see, this is Hannah's office, so clearly she struggled with that. But anyhow, I don't believe if anyone really knew that this existed, it's out there, it is a very useful feature that you can use to test at any given time, and especially if you're modifying and making changes in your auto configurations in CHADIS, okay? And of course, if you have more questions, please reach out to us. And then another troubling one, and that is canceled appointments versus rescheduled appointments. I would be shocked if none of you guys in this room or anyone joining us remotely that didn't have this issue come up before, all right? So oftentimes we get calls and emails from clients and saying, hey, I have this visit, but the questionnaire is already in the visit, but the mom canceled appointment, what do I do? The number one thing that you always want to do is to reschedule appointment at any given time that you can, okay? So going back to a very specific or basic example, questionnaires will get assigned, and a day, mom fills out the questionnaires, but the day before she cancels, okay? That's fair, that's okay. The best course action to do that is then really cancel that appointment in EHR too, and then we have another tool that will help you move those results into a different encounter. Now, if you're truly calling to reschedule, right, to reschedule that visit, simply use the reschedule button right? Because that will follow the newly scheduled details will follow that newly created encounter. It becomes, I think it was probably more problematic before we introduced this new tool, which is coming up in the next slide over. But it really should be, at the end of the day, very, very straightforward and very simple. Cancel appointment will stay with cancel appointments. And if you need to reschedule a visit, go ahead and reschedule that, and they will follow up. They will create a new encounter, and then we're going to move those results for you. Okay? So I'm not sure if anyone here struggled that before. But it certainly, you have, okay, it certainly has come up a number of times where we felt that it was probably a need to explain the process there. All right, and
Is there a way, with the move CHADIS results, is there a way to move one of them and not all of them?
no, so yeah, so that functionality moves. It will find the encounter. If there's 4 different orders, it will automatically just move forward. You cannot dictate how many. But someone did ask before, and I think we wrote a case for that to be a potential enhancement request. So you're already ahead of this one, but I'm not sure if you guys, this is a fairly new tool. I'm not sure if you guys all knew this. I hope you did. As I mentioned, a lot of stuff will be familiar to you. But Move CHADIS results is a fairly new, maybe a year, maybe maximum 2 years old. I don't believe it's even 2 years. Yeah, use this. Again, this is something that when the results are available in a different encounter, it could be a mistake. Oftentimes it happens from when clients are linking results from the messaging queue, from manual results. They're too quick, and so oftentimes they'll select the wrong patient, and now someone else's results are living with a completely different patient. So to do that, in the EHR, if you go to edit, the important thing here, the tip here, is that you have to be within that visit. Otherwise, this tool will not work. So you have to be within the visit, and then you can go to edit, select Move CHADIS results, and simply from there, just tell it which encounter that you can go to. Okay? We get email. It's funny because we get calls and say, hey, I can't do this. Like I know about this tool, but I can't use it, and so we have to explain you have to be within the visit. So it is something that we also need to change on our Learn article too, because it doesn't explicitly say that.
They can be hard to find too because of that, because you have to hit edit and go into the visit. So sometimes when you're scrolling through the visit history and you see the canceled appointment, like you don't see that there are completed screenings there until you actually go edit it and go into the visit to find them.
Okay.
So, I mean, we try to be really good about that, and it's awesome that we can move them now, but I think that's still a little bit, it makes it hard. We miss some because of that.
Because you're going directly into the visit.
So when you're in EHR and you're in that like visit history screen, that first screen, where the visits are listed at the bottom, you can't see the screenings there. You have to hit edit and go into the visit.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So sometimes people scroll past it and say, oh, there are no screenings.
Okay.
And then they manually assign new ones.
So that's, I did not hear about that particular issue. Okay. So, well, your voice is heard. So we'll potentially make some changes. I'll definitely write this case up. Yeah. And go ahead.
So not having used this yet, is there a way that you can search for completed screening on each visit, or?
Yeah. So I wish. I wish that we had a report in EHR, which again we might in the near future, because this is a question that is brought up. Many folks asked if we simply had a report in the EHR that we can run, and it will tell us, hey, how many visits or screenings have been completed versus not. Right now, the only way to do that, and I'm sorry going off topic here for a second, but right now, only way to find a visit that's incomplete is that you have to move your schedule in advance. So for example, today is 16th, right? So if you were to open up a schedule for 17th or 18th of July, you will see any visits that have CHADIS pending screenings assigned. There will be a little orange bubble that gets us put in the task column, right? That's simply indicating future orders. And they're always CHADIS, because CHADIS is the only interface that we have that auto assigns orders. on behalf of the visits. So that's the only way to find out, but you have to go visit by visit. So when you open that visit, for example, for July 18th, right, 2 days from now, and there's a little orange bubble in the task column that indicates there are CHADIS orders, you have to manually open those and see if the results are in there. However, with that being said, and I'm calling your name a lot today, but I think I may have heard that CHADIS might be able to create a report that can do something, accomplish something similar.
Yeah, so we can send you recurring emails with a report of all patients who have yet to complete their questionnaires, or we can send you reports of people who have completed questionnaires, and it's just like their name or their PCC ID number. So I do have a couple PCC practices that have that set up where they get that list every morning, and then they're able to check those patients rather than having to go into each visit.
Great, thank you. And I just remembered that I need to repeat the question. I saw Louis here. I'm not sure if that look was for that. But the question was if there was a ability to see questionnaires that were complete ahead of time. Simple answer is that we don't have it in the EHR. It's something that we might look in the near future, but CHADIS can help us out in setting up some sort of a custom report in which that can be accomplished. So I remember to do that this time. But yeah, great questions, and yeah, it's slightly different than moving CHADIS results, but it is somewhat similar to it and tied along the way. And patient flags. Patient flags can be very, very helpful and a great a trick to accomplish certain things for certain patients. Okay, and this was put in here as I was putting this presentation up. I had a client call me and say, hey, I have this particular family that, we do not want questionnaires to be assigned for these folks ever, right? Whatever the reason was. And so they wanted to do them in person and anytime they arrive. That's not how our system is designed to work. So our systems look for patients who are active and who have a portal, right? If you have an active portal and the patient is not an inactive patient, we're going to sync that information to CHADIS, and CHADIS is simply going to assign those screenings because that's how the system works, right? We can't exclude anyone. We can't just say, give me a patient A, B, and C and exclude them unless you're using patient flags, okay? Important to know that only active patients will sync to CHADIS, right? You can create, again, this is a hack in a way, but if you create a patient flag, let's just say exclude CHADIS, you can call it exclude CHADIS, and as long as you modify that and configure that particular patient flag to be excluded from reports. So for those of you who might have experience with creating flags and going to partner and creating flags, you may have seen that. And I'm more than happy to assist you with that if that's needed. Once you set up a particular flag and you mark it as exclude from reports, we do not send those patient details. We do not send those to CHADIS. They will never have they might be from previous to the change, they might exist in CHADIS, but the moment you make that change and from the day that you assign that flag to a particular patient, we're going to back off and we'll never sync CHADIS again until it's removed. That is the only way that you guys can omit from someone from receiving different questionnaires.
So the patient will never receive a questionnaire?
That is.
So it's programmed for their specific...
That is correct. Yeah, again, this is an edge case. Again, we had a number of practices reach out to us. We have a particular issue or a particular request or demand or whatever the case might be for, for example, the last one was the same, the parents, the same sex, right? So they did not want to, they wanted to fill out when they were both in practice, for example, in office. And so I helped them out and set this up. But I just want everyone to be aware of that there is no, magic button that you can't just say exclude this. You have to do this through a patient flag because patient flags are the ones who are going to make that prevention and stop from singing those patients over. Okay, and that can be done for many different reasons, not CHADIS only, but it can be done. And then one step further than that is the recommendation was, well, since you did this, then you may want to notify your staff because once you do this, your staff won't know. So I think it's a good reminder that you can do also clinical alert, something that will pop up based on a particular flag that will say, hey, this family maybe fills out surveys only in office or something like that, because again, it's a specific set of patients that you're targeting for. So if you ever run into this and say, oh, how do I do this? Well, patient flag is certainly your best friend. All right, and I wanted to kind of wrap up with that, and I really do hope that you folks took at least one new insight from here, one tip, or something from this course on CHADIS, something that you've seen that may have been different. Again, using some of these new reports, I'm really hoping that you can play with those on your own, using them, comparing them to what you're seeing in the practice every day. If you are in fact a practice who might be struggling with engagement from your patients and families. Again, we do unfortunately hear those stories. I often talk to clients about this. Again, this is all I do really, and we do hear it. They say, hey, it's working great. It's amazing. When they fill them out, when the results are there, it makes my job easier. The staff is happy, avoiding all the paperwork and scanning and faxing. But then the problem is those patients who are not engaging, right? And I don't know. I wish there was a software that we can build for that, but you just can't. That's just humans. And we do these courses again on a yearly basis, hoping that we can find one thing from the discussions that we have directly with clients that can help. For example, we have a client, and I think there's only one client out of almost 140 clients that we have, I believe 140, could be wrong there, that they have a hardcore no, like if you don't have a portal, you're not going to be patient in our practice. That's harsh, because we almost have 300 clients, and there's only one client playing, but it works for them, and everyone complies with that. That means they don't struggle with engagement, for example, with this. Because if you can't be a patient and not having a portal, imagine what they do with questionnaire assignments, because they're also using CHADIS. But again, I think that's 1 in 300 almost. I don't think it's quite 300 clients that we have, but very close to it. If you can pull that off, sure, I find it a little harsh, but I guess in their favor it works. But yeah, reporting, hopefully some of these tips and tricks, again, you can always email me. I'm always happy to explore different avenues. And considering implementing some of these best practices that I list on here, again, using proactively reaching out to your patients if you identify that they did not fill out the questionnaires. That's why I do personally wish, and maybe this will become a reality soon, that we do have also report in EHR that will give you a list of incomplete charts or surveys. So then you can use a send text feature also, in addition to many different notifications that we have, and say, hey, we noticed you're coming in 3 days from now. Will you please go ahead and fill out those questionnaires? Again, there is automation. You guys don't probably see it, but there is automation in the background. We can send up to like 3 notifications for any given family if they're not complying, if not filling them out. But I think that little personal touch using a send text feature, which was not heavily utilized for this purpose, okay? And you can just be very direct. We need you to fill this out, otherwise, it won't be seen or whatever. We'll be silly at this point, but I think that one simple thing hopefully will make a difference. And yeah, I don't know, fill or maybe don't fill out the survey. That's your choice. But does anyone have any other questions? I did want to put this out here slide for our friends here at CHADIS. Reach out to them for any questions. They are friendly people. I talk to them all the time. As a matter of fact, I talk to them more than I talk to my family. I wanted to put some, again, these are extras. I'm not really going to go over these. There are in the documents. You can find them. But if any of these are interest of you, please reach out to Hannah. Should be more happy to review some of these or stop by the desk. Again, these are all additional things that we don't necessarily teach or show, and some of these may be new as well. And I think we have about 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or any other concerns, anything that hopefully we can discuss as a team? Yes, please.
Just with the reminders. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Liz.
Thank you. For the reminders, are they always sent Is there a way to send them out in the language beside English? When we're, we know they can switch and they can toggle to take
Yeah.
the questionnaires, but as far as sending out the reminders in a different language?
I think that is a wonderful enhancement request. Now, all the reminders and notifications that go out, they're all in English. Yeah, but like you said, you're right. You can fill them out in different language. But before I go, Aaron, please jump in. I think you have a thought.
I don't know if I also need a mic for the folks.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks so much, Louis. I'm on the team that is looking at patient engagement for the roadmap right now, and it is on our radar. We want to find ultimately a solution that is going to allow for notifications to go out in other languages using the patient's preferred language. So it's not coming soon, but it's a thing we're aware of and that we're looking for.
Thank you, thank you. I'm so glad you're sitting there. Thank you, Aaron.
I have some questions from the chat as well.
Oh, wow,
If you wanna
okay.
Read them and then answer them. Here's the first one here.
All
As
right.
many as we can get to, we'll answer the rest.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you. I'm sorry, but someone in the room also had a question. I just want to make sure that.
I just said, we're getting a CHADIS result for Navicare? Is anybody
Okay.
else getting that? We have no idea what it means.
Yeah, so that is something brand new that has been that's going to roll out. I would probably prefer Dr. Howard can maybe answer that question for us. That is very, very specific to CHADIS.
Yes, and we have a new service through CHADIS, a partner to CHADIS, that would allow you to get help with mental health referral connections, and we'll let your office know, but we rolled it out in an awkward way. So we have a high commitment to helping patients get to therapy, and so we're going to try again, but we'd like to talk to your office individually, your offices, to see what method you'd like to let the parents know about the service, and if you don't want it at all, both of those possibilities. So that's what happened. We were trying to let people know through a questionnaire that the patient got, but that wasn't not a good plan. We need a new plan, but we'd love to talk to your office specifically. And we also have a table downstairs. We'd be happy to get your information and set up a time to say, do you want it? And if so, how would you like the patients to find out?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Howard. Appreciate you. Okay, so I'm not sure how much time we have, but we'll try to go through some of these. The first question here, is there any way to turn off the first three questions that are asked, like zip code, race, etc.? I suspect that would be also a CHADIS question directly.
Right, glad I came. So the demographic questions are actually optional, but it doesn't say they're optional. So the patient may give up because they don't want to answer that. Maybe we should put a mark on there that says it's optional to make it clearer to people. So that's the answer.
Great, thank you. All right, how come parents are not allowed to reset their own password? So that shouldn't, the answer to this one, they really shouldn't, there is no password related to, all the questionnaires should be filling out directly to patient portal. So when they log into the patient portal, there will be an option for them to fill out the questionnaires. There's going to be a little orange tab. You guys have probably all seen it. Once they click on that, that will give them access directly to CHADIS, so there should be no passwords. Now, if that is happening, I would have maybe you guys write it into us, so we'll take a look into that. But that should not be happening. That is, that doesn't seem quite right. So, that's the answer to that. All right, so there's a routine protocol for ASQ sent to patients who qualify for a premature growth chart. We have noticed that sometimes patients get adjusted age and some get actual age ASQs. Does this switch over at some point? I believe it does at age 2. Yeah, thank you. Let's see, how do people manage incomplete teacher vanderbilts? Oh, yeah. So sorry, guys. Dr. Howard, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and answer that question. But I also just want to.
Sure, and I've been putting stuff in the
running out of time
chat, so pay attention to the chat. There is, if you go into CHADIS, there's a force button that will allow you to see whatever has been submitted, even if the entire questionnaire wasn't submitted. You would have to log into CHADIS to do that, and I think that probably won't convey into PCC because it wasn't submitted, but you can see whatever they put in.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Dr. Howard.
For the rest, you can answer them in the chat and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Arla. I really appreciate you. Yeah, so I will make sure to get the rest of these questions. I think there's only 2 left, so And yeah, I thank you guys again. Thanks for joining me. Fourth year in a row, maybe first time or whatnot. But I really appreciate you coming, and I hope that you find this session to be helpful and beneficial. Thank you.